Today's episodes are about robots, books, and social isolation. I think I'm starting to understand why I used to like this show as a kid. Let's get to it, shall we?
I'm feeling very depressed.
It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Our first episode takes place on an asteroid. One that has an atmosphere, gravity, and scenery exactly like Earth's, but it's an asteroid. It's definitely not Death Valley, that's for sure. Jack Warden plays James A. Corey, a convicted murderer who has just finished building a car he can never drive. He's been sentenced to solitary confinement and is thus the only inhabitant of the asteroid. Now that he's finished his car, all he can do is wait for the regularly scheduled visit from the supply ship, and when it comes, he gets everything ready for Captain Allenby. It seems as though Allenby is friendly with the convict, but he doesn't have time for pleasantries on this trip, due to orbital positions or some such excuse. Allenby's lieutenants, dressed like they just finished a game of space football, are much more surly, letting it be known in no uncertain terms that they consider their job to be a wasteful chore. Which, if you weigh the cost of running a prison with a couple hundred inmates against the cost of sending a supply ship up to an asteroid every few months, they're not wrong. They're just dicks about it.
2 minutes already, and he hasn't asked about the pardon.
Corey gives a speech about loneliness, and then Allenby, genuinely sympathetic and caring, gifts him a secretive, heavy crate with something inside that even his lieutenants don't know about. After the supply crew leaves, Corey opens it to find...
I'm not quite sure, really. Maybe it's just an illusion. Maybe it's salvation.
a woman. So, okay, Queen Bavmorda here is really a robot named Alicia, but Corey wants nothing to do with her. She tells him that she has feelings, but Corey doesn't care, treating her like garbage because she's not a real girl. After enduring his abuse, Alicia starts crying, which finally breaks through Corey's angry shell and allows him to feel compassion enough to do what every man should do when a woman cries in front of him.
Oh, Alicia, I'm sorry.
11 months later, it turns out the pair have a relationship built on shared loneliness that blossoms into love. Allenby returns ahead of schedule with good news. Corey's been pardoned, and the supply ship can take him home. However, there's only enough room for 15 pounds of stuff. Corey is thrilled until he realizes that Alicia doesn't count.
Who's Alicia? A robot?
This escalates into a full-blown argument that ends when Allenby blows Alicia's face off. Then they all leave, with the robot's body left behind. This is one of my favorite unsung early episodes of the show because it has a very clear theme and isn't afraid to be provocative about it. While I could easily reach and say this is an episode about what it means to be human, I'll keep it simple and just stick to pointing out that the episode is focused on empathy. Allenby feels empathy for Corey, as do we the audience, even though he is a convicted killer. And when Corey first meets Alicia, she has to earn his empathy. Essentially, without giving and receiving empathy, we lose the essence of who we are turned inside out from loneliness. The twist, then, is that Allenby, who has so much empathy for Corey, feels nothing like that for the robot, and as a result, commits what Corey considers a horrifying, if not unforgivable act. It's just damn good writing.
Howdy! Grapes, the name. Goofy Grape. Though why they call me Goofy, I don't know. Yes, sir. I'm one of the new funny-faced drinks from Pillsbury.
Funny faces, fancy drinks.
One of the new funny-faced drinks.
Our next hero would probably love nothing more than to be left alone, however. Henry Bemis is a banker who can't get enough of the written word. Lacking the ability to notice when he's being insufferable, he is caught reading on the job by his boss, Mr. Carsville. He could have been doing far worse things looking at his lap behind the counter like that. Carsville berates Henry, angrily explaining that Bemis is more than just a reader. He will read anything within eyesight and has a tendency to hide in the vault on his lunch break. Carsville then gives him an ultimatum: stop reading at work or lose his job. Henry leaves, but is off to a terrible start. At home, things aren't much better. His wife, Helen, yells at him for reading the newspaper, and Henry, again lacking anything even approaching the nature of tact, decides to laugh about her grammar.
All right. What's so funny?
Dear, it was just that you said a husband of mine. Well, how many husbands have you got? You've only got me.
This doesn't help, of course, and his wife storms off, taking the paper with her. Henry has a secret book of poems hidden away, though, but when he tries to leave with it, his wife catches him. She tells him to read to her, and unable to sense danger, he enthusiastically agrees, only to discover that she's scratched out every page of his book. I was willing to give this lady the benefit of the doubt, but defacing literature? I hope that harpy burns. As though that weren't enough, she then starts tearing the book apart.
Why, Helen? Why do you do these things?
Because she's pure evil, Henry. Get out while you can. The next day, he goes back to the bank vault to read, notices some obvious foreshadowing, and is then knocked out by a massive explosion. He awakens to discover the world in ruins, but it takes him an impossibly long time to realize he only survived because he was in the vault. He does find an endless supply of food and cigarettes, but he is still tortured and alone. However, he is released from the grip of despair just in time when he notices the public library nearby. He finds hundreds upon hundreds of books still intact and assembles them neatly into stacks, planning out the year ahead by which classic works of literature he will read on which months. Am I the only one who thinks he needs a gigantic tarp? The episode ends after Mr. Bemis says the episode title,
Time, time, time. Ah, there's time enough at last.
Stumbles and shatters the lenses of his glasses, rendering him unable to read. He mutters about the unfairness of it all as we fade to black. This is the first really famous episode, and I don't really have all that much bad to say about it. Burgess Meredith nails it as a mousy, socially inept bookworm who doesn't mind the apocalypse as long as he's got plenty to read. It's also a remarkable television accomplishment. I like trying to imagine the writer, who happens to be Serling himself on this one, describing a ruined post-apocalyptic wasteland, thinking to himself that there's no way they could possibly make that happen. And yet, despite one or two obvious mat walls, it works even better than that alleged asteroid from the previous episode. All in all, it's famous for a reason, even if, or perhaps because, it ends with a terrifyingly cruel bit of dramatic irony.
And then there's another very funny character here called Macabre, Mr. Macabre.
And that's all I have on The Lonely and Time Enough at Last. Now, as always, do all those YouTube-y things, check out my Patreon, and all that other good stuff. But until next time, this is the Unapologetic Geek, telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody. That was weird.
You're breaking my heart.